I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is a workshop format, so again, we will take comments and questions from the residents throughout the format as well. Probably you guys may want to come up to because I know you're going to be participating from the CCMC perspective from a management company. So you might want to come up and sit at our real table or
So they
be
have a real
closer to a microphone so we can, because it will be really, this is a discussion about communications. We may act on some things, but we want to kind of go through, but we will take questions from the residents as well. I don't see, okay, Kevin is joined online, thank you. And I don't know, is that the only other board member online?
Well, that leaves us Brian.
And I don't know if Brian was able to join us today since he was out. Okay. So, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. I hear a knock at the door.
Don't answer.
Okay, so again, we tabled this at our last workshop because of the amount of conversation that we wanted to have and give this enough time to thoroughly talk about communication from a board point of view as well as a management point of view. And we have listed on the agenda several points that we would like to discuss, up to and including communication with residents, even up to the RFP and how we're going to communicate that as well. So we do need a lot of participation from the people in the room as well as the people online, and looking for ideas on how we can communicate better. So the first part of the discussion, we talked about guiding principles for communication. And that's the first item on the agenda. I'd like to start that by saying the guiding principle that I have on communication, or I think we as a board hopefully will adopt, is that we include all residents at all levels, all communication, which means that we need to have access or good communication methods with each one of our residents. And I think that's where I would like to start the conversation. Anyone have any comments?
Yeah, just as context, I sent to the board and management before this scheduled discussion, details on what each of the first, 6 or 7 bullet items meant, at least in my head, just to jumpstart the discussion. And so that, and then Brian responded with some edits. And so that's, anyway.
Yes. So
I didn't resend it, but there were other, anyway, each of those has further details.
Do you want to talk about?
Yeah,
the
no,
guiding
like
principles to start
I
us
love
off?
what you just said. I love what you just said. And I also wrote, and Brian responded on this, honest but respectful, timely. To me, that's a guiding principle, that we're timely, that we're proactive, that we're clear, we're transparent, and we're helpful. I mean, I know those sound apple pie-ish, but to me, if we agree that these are our guiding principles, or whatever our guiding principles are, that we push real hard on that. To me, a guiding principle is, you don't do something at the last minute. I mean, you don't send out an email, hey, we have this big event,
Right.
this big discussion tonight,
Mhm.
but that we're very clear.
Mhm.
One of my side pieces on our guiding principles, I always have a hard time when I see a date, like what's today's date? Quick, see? But you know what day of the week it is? I always love to say it's Friday, April 16th. If we have an event, did I miss the movie? Was it last night? Is it tomorrow? Or is it
Right.
tonight?
Mhm.
So but
You want to
to
put
me,
the
that's,
day
to
with
me,
the
to me,
date.
I don't want to get into that weed, but that means
Mhm.
that's clear. We're very
Mhm.
clear to our residents. We're clear with each other. This meeting was today. We're timely.
Mhm.
We're not going to spend 5 hours at this meeting. We're appropriate. We're respectful.
Right.
And
To me-
I do agree that starting and stopping on time is one of the respectful pieces of holding a meeting and communicating to the residents.
As part of this, can we list the methods that we currently use? We have the Friday flash.
But that comes down later.
Yeah.
Well, this agenda was not clear to me.
Okay, that's
In
fine.
fact, I told Sue that when we came in, just what you said, I would prefer it if it had the top and then bullets.
But that's what I sent, not for
I
the
did not
rest.
see that.
Yeah, I sent that to the Kroll board
Yeah.
about 8 or 9 days ago,
Sometimes I don't
10 days ago.
see stuff.
But this
But anyway,
was,
thank
this
you.
was meant to jumpstart this so we could stay focused.
Okay, then,
Yes.
But we didn't need all that detail for the resident publication. I mean,
Right. Yes, for this, yes, as well.
so, because this is discussion and not agreed to.
So Diana, as far as what you said about including all residents,
Mhm.
and I don't know if I'm jumping out of order about what we did last week at the Food Truck Fridays, that the residents were so pleased and amazed at that we were standing there and whatever paperwork JR put together to make that work with the queues, you
The
know.
QR codes, yes.
Yeah, I guess
Mhm.
that's what they're called. They were like, oh, I don't get the Friday Flash. I said, are you a resident? Yes, I am. They just like that whole idea of being able to now move forward and they'll be able to get all the information. And any questions they ask, we tried to answer them.
Mhm.
That's really important that they know that we're there for them because we are there for them.
I agree. I think that it was, frankly, it was fun.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
that's
a
why we
lot.
Talked to the residents.
Mhm.
We had a lot of great residents come up and talk to us, and it was really good that we had the interaction.
Right.
JR set that up perfectly
Yeah,
for
it
us.
was,
so that
it was
easy to do.
perfect. Thank you, JR.
so, excuse me, because I
No,
didn't
you're
see
good.
that. So are we right now talking about primarily
Guiding.
communications to the residents?
We were talking, yeah,
Overall,
overall.
my argument, so again, if you look at the outline,
Well,
we have board interactions, so that's just us.
Okay.
Board and management interactions. Management to community, community to management and board. Emergency, special situations, and then approaches.
Should
And
the
it all
standards
comes
be the
down-
Same for everybody?
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
point.
Mhm.
This is why,
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
this
the
is
point.
why we want to set a
Guiding
guiding
principles for
principle
overall.
for the whole thing. Yes. Can you
It
do
all
that?
trickles down to the resident in the end.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think, do you want to read your guiding principle again?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where we can say, this is where we're starting. This is what our standards are going to be on communication.
Yeah,
You-
honest, well,
That's fine.
I like where you started.
Yeah.
Include all residents at all levels, honest but respectful.
Mhm.
So that,
Mhm.
brutally honest is
Yeah.
different. Anyway, timely,
Right,
proactive,
right,
clear,
right,
transparent,
right.
and helpful.
Yep.
And again, that was a starting point. That's all it was.
Well, I have a comment on timely, and this is from when I worked at the bank. I always, every day before I left, I made sure I acknowledged at least every phone call, every email, well, we didn't have voicemail back then, but even when I worked here, voicemail that day.
Mhm.
Even if it was only to say, hey, I got your message. Unfortunately, Diana isn't in the office today, but I will try to grab her as soon as she walks in tomorrow. And, I will get back to you. If for some reason I wasn't able to talk to Diana, I would call that that
Mhm.
client or whatever and say, I'm so sorry, Diana got called away, out of town. She won't be back for a couple of days, but I might be able to get the answer from so-and-so, I will, and even if it's every day. If I know I can't for 2 days, then I will tell them that.
I think, and I don't know if CCMC has this policy or not, but I worked for several companies that that it was always the sundown policy. You didn't leave until you're at sundown, by sundown, you responded, or at least said, I've acknowledged that we have to talk about this. It might not be today, but we'll set a future. Does CCMC do they have that kind of policy for your employees?
We do, and I'm actually glad that Scott brought up. So our internal policy is 24 business hours for phone calls, 48 business hours for emails.
So 24
since-
business, say that again, to say,
24 business hours for a phone call.
so that's 3 days.
No, it's one business day. Sorry,
So-
one business day
Because I'm
for
saying
phone
business
calls,
hours.
2
we have-
business
Business hours is
days
8
for emails.
Okay, so
that's what-
24,
that's what we aim
24
for.
hours, not business hours.
No, for example, if you send us an email on a Sunday,
Mhm.
I mean, we view it as, okay, I guess 9 a.m. on Monday is when that clock starts for us.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
But I'm glad it got brought up because there has been some back and forth with, I think some of you expect instantaneous responses. We can't be in the field looking at something while at the same time in front of our desk waiting for emails just to respond to. Gary's not here, so it's probably not fair to bring it up, but is that something maybe that needs to get put into the RFP if there's expectations
Mhm.
of what the board views as timely? I almost feel like that needs to be documented or maybe somehow rolled into your KPIs. If it was just one person, I guess I wouldn't pay much attention, but we've had numerous people.
Okay. I believe that that's a business standard, and I think that's a
Mhm.
fair standard,
Mhm.
as long as we're meeting that standard.
But we don't. I mean, it's just there's some days we're not going to because we're either human or somebody is sick or somebody's on vacation
Mhm.
or sometimes we get a couple hundred emails a day. I mean, we could stay here till midnight just sitting, hey, we'll respond when
Right.
we can. We'll respond. I mean, we could do that too.
Okay.
But I
Um,
do think if it is, and this is the first thing you brought up, if it's the most important thing, which is the first thing, you might want to consider that as part of it, of the RFP language.
And I don't remember, Gary's online. At least I think I see him up there. Gary, are you online?
There's probably a general statement in there
Yeah.
without a number.
I'm here.
Probably says timely.
Gary, is there a specific in the RFP regarding that? I don't remember the verbiage.
No, there is not a specific time for answering the phone. We left that up to the companies so we could do a comparative analysis between each of the companies to see which has something that's more responsive to our needs. But we didn't want to tell them how to do their business.
Okay.
That would be in the interview process, right?
I think that, that may be a question that we ask in the interview process, what their business, what your business guideline is for responding to residents. Okay. I do think that is one of the negative comments that we get from residents is lack of timely response. So that's something that, it has been brought up, and I think that's where we need to try and improve that as we can. And in getting back to someone, making sure that we're responding. Can you kind of tell me, I know it's probably hard to give an average, but are you responding within 24 hours? Are you getting, you respond very well to me, which I really appreciate. But is there a standard, how close are you to meeting that standard?
It's not something I measure. It's not in the KPIs. I don't have each team member track.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think it's
There's-
safe to say it ebb and flows because,
Yeah.
you can have,
No, your mic.
oh.
So we can hear you.
Who's behind me?
No, not JR.
It ebb and flows,
You're throwing
obviously.
JR under the bus, aren't you?
Yes, I'm sure anybody knows life, it's busier sometimes. It's not as busy. So we generally are busy every day, all day, but there will be days, when I'll literally get 100 to 150 emails. And so that's kind of hard to keep up with that and do your daily operational tasks. But then, later on the week, you may have kind of slowed down. People are heading towards the weekend. Maybe you don't get as many. So you're more on it. So yes, the goal is 24 hours and 48, and we do our best to do that. So sometimes if it gets a little too much and we can't stay past 7, then sometimes you have to it takes an extra day to get to them. But we definitely strive to do that with everybody here. At least tell them
And I
that we
think
can't
that-
talk right now, but we'll get back to them.
Well, and I think that's something that we need to strive to get better at, because that is something that the residents clearly have stated that we're, and it's frustrating from their point of view because they don't know you've got 200 emails. They know
Right.
you've got their one,
Right.
and that's the most
Right.
important one to them on your list.
Sure.
And we understand that. And that's where timely, as part of the guiding principles, that is timely. And that's what we need.
And Diana, I mean, this could be exhaustive, but if somebody copies me on an email
Mhm,
and then they get mad at me that I didn't respond to them,
mhm.
I would encourage them to put me in the 2. I know that sounds incredibly derogatory and condescending, but
Put you in the what?
there are email etiquettes, just business. So if you include me per se and
Right.
you just copy me, but I'm not in the 2 column, just
Oh,
basic
2
business
column.
etiquette
Yeah.
is that you're just keeping me in the loop. You're not actually expecting a response from me, but then we do get criticized because we don't respond. I do think sometimes because this is what we get paid to do, we operate under different rules.
Mhm.
I think-
And again,
I
it's not
think-
meant
That's a good
condescending,
point.
but when I copy my boss on an email, I honestly, I'm not expecting him to respond. So I think sometimes we get those. I think sometimes if I see that a department head is on the email that should be on the email, I allow the department heads to handle their business. Now, if that's not happening, then yes, obviously escalate to me. But I do think there are some elements of it where we do have complaints of non-responsiveness, but I'm not entirely sure we even knew that that person was expecting a response, and or maybe it just didn't get to the right person and we failed internally to convey it to the right person. We're not perfect
I agree with
at all.
that. There are some email guidelines that are prevalent in the business world that maybe are not prevalent
Right.
in a
Right.
resident. A
Mhm.
resident who maybe is not in the business world, who just is sending that email,
Yeah.
and they don't follow the same email guidelines.
And for what it's worth, I do the same thing in my personal life.
I-
I forget the rule, like literally when I walk with the, I do the same thing. I'm guilty of it where I feel like I didn't get responded to. Then I realize like, oh, I actually copied the person. I shouldn't have expected, but
Yeah.
that's not a catch-all for everything.
No, and there are some topics that just clearly you got to respond to, and if you're, and I see your hand. I'm not
And then
ignoring you.
another one.
I'm not ignoring you, Jackson, but there are some topics that, when you're CC'd on email, you clearly know I gotta respond. So, okay, Jackson.
So let me preface this by saying that I have the utmost respect for every person in management and the job that you have to do and the workloads that you have. And I've known many of you for many, many years. So I think you know that that comes from a deep place. On the other hand, my inbox is filled
Mhm.
with messages from residents who say, I'm not getting a response. And I believe a big part of the problem is you don't have enough people to do that work. I'm delighted Kaylee's here. I'm glad we've got some administrative help. I understand that the last year with COVID had to be incredibly difficult. No question about it. But this is not a sustainable model right now. You are falling further and further behind in the communication based on what I'm seeing as a board member, and I would imagine
Mhm.
all my other board members are seeing as well. We've got to help find a way to resolve this. If that's a standard of service problem, Neil, then we ought to address that. We ought to make sure that we are giving you the resources that you need to hire the people to get the work done so that Susanna can be doing her job and getting her emails out, and Jessica can be doing it, and each person there. And then ultimately, I think that it becomes incumbent on you as management to be the professionals in the field. And even if your name isn't in the to box, you can read the email and see if it's really appropriate for you to respond and then make that response. I mean, I don't think that's asking too much of you, and we'll try and do our part. But ultimately, I think that you have an obligation to be responsive to the people that employ you. And I don't mean the board. Your responsiveness to us as board
Right.
members is exquisite. The problem is when you're not on the board and you're trying to get an answer to something or find out about something, whether it's covenants or it's ARC or it's just a problem that you're having, it is a constant barrage. I'll give you one very quick example. There is a RV parked in Artisan Park that has electricity running from the RV to the house. That RV has been parked there for weeks. A resident called to talk about it and was told by the front desk, oh, we know about it. And the front desk hung up on the resident before they could even give the detail. That kind of level of service is not
Not
what,
acceptable.
I know you, Susanna, I know Jessica, I know that is not the way you do things, but it's a training problem. You've got people that aren't trained in the front desk, and so they're not doing the job. We've got to be better than that, I think. And I think that starts with you coming to us as a staff and saying, Neil, if you don't have enough people, tell us you don't have enough people. Is that an unrealistic expectation on our part?
Can I echo you for a minute?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll get you
All right.
just for a second.
I'm asking Neil.
No,
Yeah.
oh,
It has recently been brought to my attention that some of you don't like me saying that, I'm still newish. So Jackson, I don't know is the answer to your question. So I wasn't here prior to 8.5 months ago. I don't know.
I'm asking you for right now.
Just-
I'm not
and-
asking new.
No,
This
I-
doesn't have to do with being new.
Okay, Jackson, I'm trying to answer your question in the way I can
Sure.
answer your question.
Okay.
Are you understaffed? I don't know. I've been here 8 months. You guys have been here for 24 years. Are you understaffed? I would say absolutely. the service level expectation, there's definitely a understaffing situation to manage those expectations.
Right.
I think every association, you guys aren't special when I say this, there gets to be a pivot point or a turning point or whatever we want to call it, where we can either manage property or we can manage emails. This is not a celebration. It's not even a unique HOA thing. This is just a business issue. We will get to all of our emails. But as it stands right now, Jackson, it's whether it's a service issue or it's a volume issue or it's an expectation issue. I feel like that's what we need. I need to know that before I can answer your question. Like, for example, today's meeting, I didn't know we were going to talk about this. So I feel like I could have been better prepared to answer that.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. So you wanted to. say
okay, so
something,
with-
and then I'll let her and then.
Yeah.
get to you,
Okay,
David.
so I'm glad you brought up the front desk. So when a resident, a new resident, resident who's been here a while comes in, that's your first impression when you get to that front desk. And if somebody's, I don't know how much staff you have behind the front desk. Sometimes I come in, there's one person sitting there. I hear a lot of feedback from residents. Oh, I was standing there 5 minutes. The person at the desk didn't even look up to acknowledge me. Or I call constantly and all I get is a recording. And then I had called and I said to the girl, because I had a question, I says, why is there always a recording? She goes, well, if I'm taking care of a resident, I put the phone on record. So obviously at the front desk where the person is getting the first impression of celebration as a new resident, right there, it shows there's a problem with lack of staff, and it's not their fault. It's not your fault, but
think
there
Neil-
is a lack of staff.
And Neil has solved, you have just added additional staffing to the front desk, right? So where's additional
Okay.
staffing that just,
So how many-
and that's within.
how many
So
now?
we
within the
will
last 10
always,
days.
we will always serve the resident that's in front of us
Face to
before
face,
we
right.
serve someone on the phone. And that's just because they're in person, they're waiting.
Right.
That's common customer service. So, and yes, we have been short in the front for a while. And so I've been up there working myself, trying to help. We've all been taking shifts, and I can tell you the phone's ringing every 3 minutes. So, and if you have someone at the front that needs you, you're going to serve them first.
Right.
And then those should go to the department head that they belong to, and they return the phone call.
Are you looking to hire a third? Because when I worked here,
Yes.
there were 3.
I
Mhm.
think there, yeah, I think you're still,
Do you ever think to hire temps? Because it seems like it takes awfully long to replace people.
No, we don't use temps very often.
Hey, Diana,
that's something
Diana, I'm sorry. When I took the job here, some of the high level concerns were directly from the board with respect to staffing and culture. I'm just not comfortable having an open dialogue about staffing and what I'm doing to try to execute the right fit for the right people. I appreciate the temp thing, but that doesn't help our homeowners long term. But I'm not sure an open meeting talking about personnel and load issues and
one of, yeah,
it
one of the
is,
things.
and I'll be honest, I was not prepared to come here with all my staffing information.
And that's fair, and we will work on the staffing issue, but frankly, hiring in this current state is very difficult, and I face that in my current life as well as you do as well, but we got to work through that. David?
Yeah, so I had a thought that was parallel, but a little different than Jackson's, and I really appreciate Jackson. So I want to go back to where we are. Guiding principles. To me, another guiding principle is to continuously look at efficiencies or systems. I know we've just gotten into the weeds. I'm going to keep this at my
Thank you.
voice is keep it at a higher level. Look at efficiencies and systems. So as a sidebar example, when I've run for the board and I have residents come to me, when I run for the board, I say, I am not here to solve your problems. I will not handhold you.
Mhm.
I will tell you who to call. Do sell a service. This is a CDD. I'm not going to solve your problem. But if you have a problem solving your problem, let me know. And then I will take that back at a higher level and look at systems.
And that's happening
And-
now.
And so that's, I think the RFP is we step back and we look at the things and we want to articulate clearer than what was written 20 years ago and updated modestly if that 3 years ago.
I
So
agree
it's-
that as
So
a-
it's a systems thing.
As a board, we need to look at the higher level, which is getting the staffing right to solve the issue so the resident doesn't come to us that they can't solve their own
Right.
problem.
And so then to Neil's point, periodically, we get into personnel discussions, which can be executive session, and talk about how do we meet these higher standard or the standards or whatever our, what do you call it? Level of service that we want.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a guiding principle. Look at efficiencies and systems to help them to meet what we set out to meet.
So then moving forward with the RFP process, is that documented on how many people have to be at the front desk?
No, we have set
No.
a standard of service
Right.
and they have to tell us what they're going to do to meet that standard of
Okay.
service. And that's true.
So
for
we
all of the
know
companies.
That there may be more staff needed.
Well, and that is up to the company. That is
Right,
not
okay.
up to us to determine. One thing, and I know, because we have returning board members and new board members, you're always going to get the resident who comes to you first
Yeah.
instead of going through the process.
Yeah, right.
Because they think either they don't know the process or they think they're going to get, a faster resolution.
Exactly.
And I would recommend always trying to refer the resident to get into the process, because ultimately that's going to be their fastest method of getting it solved. If you're trying to be the mediary in that circumstance, it's better if we get them to covenants, or if we get them to ARC or, Parks and Rec to solve that. Because once they're, it's better that they get there. So I
Yeah.
heard a comment from someone, I don't know if that was a comment or just someone accidentally unmuted.
I just met someone.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Kevin, do you have any comments out there? I see you're out there, but I haven't heard from you.
No, I'm here. I'm listening. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate us winding back from that conversation with management. I don't think it's necessarily the right forum or location for it. I was kind of biting my tongue and gripping a little bit on this side because I think it was quickly going the wrong direction. So I appreciate that stepping back. It's important to have this conversation today about communication, about just overall how we all communicate with one another, whether that's, let's get to an agreement of the, do we all include each other in emails or not? Do we, how do we do management on emails or not? We need to go ahead and take care of our code of conduct. That's been the same code of conduct that we've had for years. It's just a common practice to go ahead. We've reamped it. I think I've been on the board. We reamped it once or maybe twice. We did a couple final touches or polishing touches on it and brought it up to the current times. Perhaps the thing that we need to address in code of conduct might be Zoom. That's been a change that's happened over the last year. And that might be something that needs to be added in here. But I appreciate David's, overall overview. And it's just, this is really, it's a workshop. It's a brainstorming. It's a make sure we're all on the same page.
Exactly. I'm going to recommend that we move on to board interactions.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd like to preface this conversation with is that we need to have one voice, and one voice has kind of been the overall guiding principle, which means, and to set that standard, I meet with Neil and Susanna weekly, or almost as weekly as we can, and we update all the outstanding issues. If I'm not aware of those issues, if they're not coming from me or they're going around me, I can't follow up with them and be a one voice advocate for the board. And I'm not saying that you don't have interactions with Neil and Susanna, because I think that sometimes is appropriate, but for issues, we need to have them come from one source, being the board, so they know which direction to go and can follow up back to us as well. So board, that's continued in board interactions and kind of board / management interactions where copying Neil and Susanna is important, but it also, they have to respond back. We have to be one voice going to them. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think if we've got an issue, it needs to come through the board and it will be covered in our leadership meeting that we sit down, and basically our leadership meeting is it's not really a leadership meeting. It's more of a touch base. What's going on? Where are you at on this? What do you need from the board? What do you need from, do we need from you, that I can follow up on key issues with them?
So dovetailing off your thing there. So if we have an issue that we've gotten from a resident
Mhm.
as a board, our email should be directed to you, copying the board
And Neil and Susanna.
and copying them.
Yeah. And then I will.
And
sit
then
in
you
and
will
say,
follow up
"Hey,
with them.
Yeah,
Okay.
can you update us on this?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Is that, you're not shaking your head, Jackson? You got a comment?
Well, I think that, I mean, Kevin's already raised the issue of wanting all emails to go to all board members. I think that's what his position is. I may be wrong. I think that we're smart enough to know that not all emails have to go to all board members.
Right.
I don't know that we all have to see every piece of communication. If Neil gets 200 pieces of email in a day, I would say a typical board member probably gets 50 or so.
That's
And
fair.
so, in my view, to use your example, if a resident has said something to you and you think it has general application, I suppose you could send it to the entire board, but I would be perfectly comfortable with you sending it to Diana and letting Diana and management follow up. And then if we need to be engaged in it, we could. And I think I think that these all or nothing rules take away our ability to use good sense, good judgment. That's my point.
And I agree. I think you said it much more eloquently than I said it. There are some things that don't need to go to the entire board. If it's a specific resident issue that isn't a broader issue, that would help eliminate some of the email. I swear, I probably get 70 emails a day. I get far less at my personal job than I get from than our volunteer position. So we do need to cut that back because it just spirals out of control. And there are a lot of times when emails don't require a response from everyone on the board. It's more of an FYI, here's the situation. You don't need to respond back to it. And I think some of that comes with being on the board long enough to go, oh yeah, thanks, I know about that. I don't need to respond to that. And some of that also comes from if it's an issue that we've said, hey, could you please respond? So if you're expecting a response from the whole board, maybe put that in the email and say, please respond with your thoughts. Can the board please respond with their thoughts? Or I'll respond that I've moved this to Neil and Susanna so they can help take care of it. Okay, so better communication on our part. Any other comments on email board interactions?
Well, there's two different issues here.
Mhm.
One is the board with itself and the other is board with management.
Yes, okay.
So to me, board with itself, we are a board of 7 with 7 equal votes. And I don't know, there's a lot of things here.
This is a broad topic.
Yeah,
That's
so,
why-
to me, it's, again, you go back to our guiding principles, going to the specific on email protocols. I don't think everyone needs to be copying on everything. I get lost and I can't find things, and Outlook is better than whatever it was, whatever. And it's
Oh, I
just,
thought it
it's
was
like, I was looking
today.
for something yesterday and I could not find. Eventually I found it, but it was like, oh, this is awful. And I'm spending 5 minutes trying to find something. I mean, I could have contacted somebody, but no, I don't want to waste their time. Anyway, we don't need to copy everyone on everything. It just becomes overwhelming. If I have something with Celia, like we did yesterday, we didn't copy everybody. I don't
Right.
think we did.
No,
No, I hope you didn't, because I haven't seen it. so.
But so to me, we can have routine discussions. I know publicly, we can only have 3 of us in a room. But decisions, I wrote this, board interactions, decisions are made in publicly noticed meetings and then they're recorded.
I think some of this is learning by trial and error on what needs to be copied and what doesn't. So.
And then what needs to be talked about.
Right, and then
like-
we need to be fair and say, hey, if something gets copied that doesn't need to, hey, maybe you don't need to copy the whole board and respond back.
So to me, it's like this discussion. Rather than just sending out a memo, you sending out a memo that says, here are the communication protocols 1 through 20, we're discussing what is appropriate. And we're trying to bring it so that things are better for our residents and better for us and better with management. I think that earlier point about one voice is really the board with management, knowing that we're a voice of 7. But or if I'm representing the board at a committee meeting, as I was on 2 of them in the last week, I'm one voice. So what do you think the board thinks? And I said, I'll tell you what I think,
Mhm.
but if you want to raise this as a board, this is a board decision.
Mhm.
So it's just respectful to the board.
Any comments? Kevin, anything else out there?
No, I'm listening right now.
Okay. All right.
But you're right. It's as if we talk about these things, if we have this discussion today and have some semblance of agreement, and then something seems to be a little out of whack, we try to bring it back in and try to talk about it.
And I think we're all pretty open with one another.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think we have any barriers amongst the board. We're all pretty open, so that's a good thing.
Except for the board member who's not even here virtually.
That's a joke,
Oh,
right?
that was a joke.
That's
That was a joke. And he'll find it at minute 2750.
Because he will watch this, I'm sure.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, I think we all are.
Yes.
You're right. We're all pretty open.
Okay, so the next topic is management to the community. And I think if we, and I know JR's here, thank you very much for being here as well, because he handles most of that. So management from the community has many different ways that they communicate. It's through the Friday Flash, it's through email blasts, it's through the monthly magazine, it's through the town hall Facebook page. There's a whole.
I listed
complete
about
list.
20 in the
There's
prior
a
notes.
lot of different.
And I
ways of
added
doing
one
that.
from you.
You did?
Uh-huh. I think it was you.
The food trucks?
The food truck.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's Celia.
Or Celia, the
Yeah.
face to, it was the
Yeah,
face to face.
face-to-face
Weren't you there too?
communication.
Mm.
Okay.
Email, phones, flyers, there's all sorts of communication within the resident. And I think there were some suggestions amongst the, yeah, that's a nice little review there. There's some suggestions among the board on how we could improve the communication and how we're using the Facebook. The Facebook was one of the ones I know that I had been brought up to me. And I don't know if JR, you run the Facebook page, right?
Sure.
Yeah. How we could improve that, how well it's working. So really it's a broad topic because there's so many different forms of communication. I think one focus that I would like from the board is that we improve that, we get that Friday Flash improved. Not only from how many people get the Friday Flash to the content of the Friday Flash. And JR and I and the team have worked a little bit on not being so repetitive. I think sometimes when it's repetitive, they're like, I've seen that. Trying to move some things around on the Friday Flash to make it more meaningful and make it more interactive with the residents. So.
Can
I will
we
yield to
put
the
that-
comments.
Can we put what he had out at Food Truck Friday at all of our events that are for Crow residents only?
Mhm.
So that it's maybe hanging on a pole, update your Friday Flash information,
Yeah.
Mhm.
not just at Food Truck Friday.
Mhm.
Because the residents were like, wow, you saw how they reacted to it. And they came back and thanked us at the end, as they were leaving, that, communication was important and we're hearing it.
I was really surprised about the number of people who said, oh, what's the Friday
Yeah.
Flash? There's a lot of people out there that don't have a clue. I don't know, how did I guess we're using all the emails that we currently have on file, right? Or did they have to actually opt into the Friday Flash?
They have to opt into the Friday Flash.
Okay,
So
There's an
that,
official, we have an official email for every resident, which is for official business only, correct?
right.
okay.
Not everybody.
No, we don't.
There's no legal requirement.
Well,
It's- Mike, we can't hear you, bud.
There's no legal requirement for any homeowner to provide anything to us other than their physical address to where they would receive legal and official communication.
But should that be part of when they come in and register as a resident to get their Crow ID? Should they be asked, would you like to be on the Friday Flash? This is what the Friday Flash is. This is what it
Why,
explains.
why
Are
do
we
we
asking-
assume they don't?
Yeah, I was.
Because a
gonna
lot
say-
of residents, I just moved in. I didn't even know about this. Nobody said anything to me when I got my Crow ID. That's
So are
how we
so My
know.
question to you is, are we asking the residents
Right.
when they come in to get their ID, would they? Okay.
What's,
so
Celia,
repeat that for the.
what's the action item you guys want to see from
I'd like to
this?
see as many people on that Friday Flash as absolutely possible, because I think it's a great
I-
source of immediate
may-
communication. Kevin,
With the statements that we go ahead and CCMC mails out, they're kind enough to go ahead and also email something out with the lifestyle events that are happening for the remainder of the year, things like that. Is there a one pager that we can go ahead and include with, if you would like to be included in the Friday Flash? Here's a QR code, or here's how you go ahead and do it, as well as adding an email, because I know that we look at them as the same thing, but I believe legally they are two separate things. If an owner gives us their email address for the Friday Flash, we cannot take that email address and provide it to the CCMC database for Crow related items. There, as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that owner actually has to give their email address twice. This was a
That's-
communication about a
That's
year
what we
ago.
had at the
Yeah.
table set up. We had
I-
two different,
Yeah, I
Right.
love, Kevin, I love that idea. I
Right.
think if we put the QR codes in with the next mailing, people were very, they know how to use a QR code.
Some,
They were
and
very
those who don't have a
eager to do it.
smartphone don't.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and
So
then
you have both.
there's
You have both.
also an email address,
You have
or there's
both.
also a website that they
Do
can go
both,
to sign
do
up.
both. Yep.
Yeah. I love that. That QR code, it was easy.
Mhm.
We had people that didn't have a smartphone. They went right to the website. It was easy.
Yep.
I don't know. We probably got, 30
Oh,
maybe-ish.
more,
I
a
don't know.
lot.
We were there for 3 hours and got a lot.
But in all fairness to the resident that's coming in now, filling out the form, it says you want to have your email on the Friday Flash. Unless it's physically explained to the resident what the Friday Flash is, what we did, how I showed it to them.
Yeah, Celia
I
had
kept
pulled
pulling it up
phone.
and saying, oh my God, I didn't even know that existed. Or if they don't know what the Friday Flash is,
Say it.
it needs to be explained to the resident. Sometimes they don't know enough to ask,
A
what is the
weekly
Friday?
e-newsletter with
Right.
happenings in the community.
But the resident may not ask the person at the front desk, what is a Friday Flash?
Yeah.
It should be maybe automatically, would you like to be on the Friday Flash? This will include every event and every issue that's going on in Celebration.
Love all that ideas. I think that's great. We also found that, my husband gets that. I never see
Yeah,
it.
oh, we got, yeah,
So let them know that multiple
Mhm.
emails they can submit multiple emails for
Right.
residents. So you might want
Right, that's a
husband,
good
wife,
point.
your adult child.
Good
whatever.
point.
Yes. Cindy.
When we were using the 690 building as a, place to
Office,
sign up for stuff in an office and selling all that merchandise, I had the idea to have a series of brochures, just like they used to have in the bank. When you walked in there and you were standing around, there was one, our checking products, our savings products,
Okay.
whatever. There are so many people in this town that, and I know Jackson, you can't believe that there's people that don't live here that don't know about ARC and covenants, but I swear to you that they don't, because I have a friend that just was new to the neighborhood, and she's got a very social block that she lives on, and she's telling people, that she's, getting, in the process of getting her house color approved, and they're like, why? Well, because you have to. Says who?
Mhm.
And they've lived there for years and years and years. So, a little brochures that would, maybe one is communications.
Mhm.
Here's how you can learn about what's happening in Celebration. You open it up and it talks about the magazine, and it talks about the Facebook page, and it talks about the Friday Flash. If we encourage you to get this is all you have to do. Maybe another one about, what you need to know about living in Celebration. We are a homeowners association. We are not a town. We are not a city, we're a
Right.
homeowners association. We have rules, and then just bullet, that affect your, the exterior of your home,
Right.
the plants. Just little bullet things, and then who to call and how to find out more. and
Cindy,
you
if,
direct them.
if we could, Jared, can you explain the thumb drive that new residents get?
We
The
have a welcome,
information?
we have a welcome packet that's on the website. When new residents arrive, they get that welcome packet on a USB drive.
Okay,
And a
now
lot,
let me say this about that. I have another friend whose sister just moved into here. I don't know that she got, the thumb drive or whatever, but she's 80 years old. You can't give most 80-year-old people will look at that. Well, give it to me. You know where that's gonna go? In a little basket that I have above the computer that has other thumb drives in it.
Yeah.
But I
you
think
can't
the goal
assume-
in doing that was because of the technology cornerstone, which was to kind of
Well, I
move away from
understand,
the
but you also
paper
have to
route.
realize that there's people that doesn't, I had another, and the same person came in and she wanted to sign up for the Friday Flash. And they said, we just need to go to this website. You can do it yourself.
Mhm.
Well, she's, again, she's
Well, and some of
80
them-
years old.
Right. Some people will need more assistance than others.
Well, so,
and
and I think
in a
that
different.
if you
format.
gave them other options, and I'm not saying to print thousands and thousands and thousands of these brochures, but just even for the people that have been here for a while and they're waiting in line, and they see, oh, communication, boom, I didn't, and
Well,
if
and-
they look at it and put it back.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
wouldn't have a we could even post those QR codes in the windows out here. you know, because those, you know, sign up for the Friday Flash or
Even
whatever.
at the,
So
even
can-
on the window at the front desk would be
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So just a thought to bring this, what you just said, back to a larger picture, a guiding principle would be use multiple media or
Mhm.
multiple approaches and attempt to reach different age groups and appropriate technology, appropriate strategies. And that's not said well, but in other words, be age appropriate. You know, the Gen Z is different than the 80-year-old. I mean, they're not the same. No, but someone will see it in the celebration news, look at the QR code, go to the ARC site to get more information on that article or the dog park or special event. So use multiple technologies and be age sensitive. Again, not worded well, but
Well,
we get.
I'll throw something in here because I appreciate what everybody's saying. And this is something that I found very interesting that was published just a couple days ago regarding the demographics of Celebration. And our heaviest demographic is actually the 45 to 64 range, and the secondary is 30 to 44. After that, it's actually 18 to 29 before it goes to the 65 plus for Celebration. So I appreciate what everybody's saying, but I think it is reasonable to go ahead and reflect upon that as we do look how we are moving forward as a community. I support what Cindy's saying, similar as if, you know, not to spin anything, but if somebody needed extra assistance in any reason in their life, they can go ahead and request, hey, can you print that out for me? And so on and so forth. I'm sure management would help that. But this is something that I think is getting more into the weeds than anything, because we know that management will assist the resident if they ask. Maybe our concern is, do they have to ask? Should it just be offered?
JR, do you have any additional comments about that? I know this is your,
Ballywick.
yes, that's it.
As far as the,
Communication and how we can better communicate those new resident packages to the residents.
I mean, we can, you know, do a QR code that goes directly to it. You know, they're about 20 pages, so I'd be hesitant to print them because they are updated several times a year. So I wouldn't want to print them. I mean, they can be requested. If somebody doesn't want a USB drive, they can ask the front and the front can print them off. I mean, that's not an issue.
Okay, and again, that's something we could offer to the residents. Okay, and also offer the QR code. I like that QR code for doing that as well.
Which goes to the proactive thing too.
Mhm.
You know, as the person at the front desk is checking people in, you know, rather than, you know, they can say, here's a hard drive, everything you need to know about Celebrations in here. If for some reason you're not comfortable with that, then we could certainly print it out for you, or, you know, we can, you know, whatever, or if you have a, we could put it on your, with that QR code thing or something. But
Yeah,
that goes back to the proactive
That's, yeah.
thing.
okay. Celia, did you have a comment or no? She forgot. You sound like me, Celia. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I remembered, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The town hall, Celebration Town Hall Facebook page that we have, I'm sorry, Jay.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
That's great. It gives the residents a lot of information, but sometimes I have to share it onto the back porch and the front porch because residents don't automatically get, like, they don't,
If they're not on that page, they don't.
yeah,
see it.
they don't have access to it. And it gives a lot of information, but it always seems to have to be shared. And then when it is shared on the porches, the residents go, oh, I didn't know this page existed. Wow, that has all the information. It has everything on there. They just don't know. Like, social media is very important, even on the porches. And I know town hall can't fix what somebody posts on the front porch, the back porch, but if they don't hear it from there, or they'll put a complaint up. I call town hall. What's the color of paint I need? We'll call town hall and ask. Well, I've called town hall a couple of times. They don't know who to reach out to at town hall. Are they asking the right questions when they call town hall? Like,
I think that's kind of back to the resident knowing where to go, but I think you bring up a bigger issue of the pages that don't belong to town hall.
right.
Yeah, and on that order, I want to thank and compliment JR. there is a Facebook page for Artisan Park residents. So it's not an official page.
Right.
And the communication director of the Artisan Park Committee, Janine Brandt, got in touch with you, JR, and she's been reposting information that you've been putting specifically onto that page for people who, for whatever reason, aren't connected. So to Celia's point,
Right.
social media is a big deal. There are people that would come on a Facebook page, but not necessarily look at a Friday Flash or
Or a thumb
Or vice
drive.
versa.
or vice versa. And I think that's been I mean, I'd like your comments on it, but I think that's really a good way to collaborate where there's a Facebook site that is not our official site, but we're able to get our official information in there in a positive collaborative way. Is that accurate?
It is. I mean, in addition to Facebook, I mean, we also have a Twitter account, an Instagram account, two
Right.
YouTube accounts. But like you had mentioned, either, sorry, one of you had mentioned about some residents, didn't know. By sharing that, by people going on and sharing the post, that's how, I mean, we try to promote it as much as we can. But by people sharing posts and sharing information, that's how people realize, and that's how we get an uptick in, the page views, the page likes.
Mhm. And there's so many non-official celebration Facebook pages that I don't know if it's worth maybe reaching out to the admins of those pages. I mean, I own some of them, I'm sure I'm not on all of them. And getting them to coordinate with helping us, getting their permission to post things on that page from the town hall. Like you've obviously coordinated with the Artisan Park person, the admins, their page, coordinating that our information also goes directly to their pages. And I don't know how that would work. But being involved in those pages, I know Celia's been taking stuff off town hall and putting it on front porch, back porch, whatever page, that somehow we get a coordination, or maybe our post, but we have to be careful about not because those pages aren't just residents, where town hall pages are just residents,
Right.
hopefully. About posting, Zoom contacts and how, getting into meetings that are resident only, so.
Yeah, we don't post anything that we don't post on social media.
Right. So I post the agenda every week, every
it's
time we have an
without the Zoom.
agenda, and I delete the ID number just so the residents know, hey, this is what's coming up, FYI.
And you tell them how to get the Zoom information if they want to.
And if they have a problem I always say, if you have a problem, to call town hall, because
Mhm.
I don't want to give out the wrong information. I don't want to give out too much information. So calling town hall is their go-to.
Okay.
Well, coming on this conversation, this is something I brought up, I think, for about 2 years now, that it is a possibility for town hall. Now, for everybody, let's just make sure we're on the same page. There are Facebook pages, there are Facebook community pages, which are essentially like forums. They are different things. So we in Celebration have a Celebration town hall page. Think of it as a fan page where anybody in the world can like that page. They see fun events. It looks great. It looks beautiful, whatever the case is. I don't know the percentage of people, and I don't even know if it's possible to figure out a percentage of people that are actually owners that like that page, right? But that's going to get into the nitty gritty. Something that's very simple is just like our neighbors down the street do, Disney and Universal. They have their official account where their PR, their people who are communications, go ahead and reach out to these unofficial pages that talk about annual pass holders or talk about visiting Florida theme parks, whatever the case may be, and they can actually interact and comment, or rather clarify when things are incorrect. They could turn around and have just 10 standard phrases, if you will, and say, hey, you're looking for ARC information. This is how you do it. This is the next meeting date. Boom, done. Further information, send us an email here. It's not a continued conversation. It just kind of nips everything before it continues to escalate. And I think that presence will be huge in the community and be huge with the residents. And it's almost a training opportunity in a way that over time, people will stop just complaining on that page, surprisingly, because they'll start knowing where to go directly. That's it. It comes back to education of communication from day one.
So that's where we have someone that is interacting with those non-official Facebook pages. That's what,
I would like to see if management can look into it. And like I said, I've been asking for years for that.
is that a possibility? I'm
Everything's a
asking.
possibility. I would just really like, if we have these new directives, I'd like to know how to quantify them so that we can measure them by the KPIs, not by a.
I don't, yeah, and
Yeah.
I would ask you to say, maybe you guys can put your heads together and find out how we would measure that, how we would see how many posts that we had on the non-official pages. I mean, I'm kind of looking at all three of you because I don't know how to quantify that. And I don't know if we have someone who is just the social media person, because I know you do multiple jobs, how that looks. So I would ask for you guys to come back to us and maybe tell us how we could improve that. And maybe what the KPI would be from the management company. Because I see benefit of that, because I think the more we're on social media, not just town hall where people aren't, that we will have benefit and more contact with the residents. And I think, Kevin brings up a good point that once that happens and they're educated, then they know to go to the town hall page, or they know to go to the website, and they know how to do it, and maybe they become more self-sufficient.
Okay, and also,
Mhm.
Kevin talking about the demographics, the ages, Cindy talking about her friend who is in the 80s.
Mhm.
There's moms that have so much going on. There's dads that have so much going on. Even handing them a thumb drive is like, wait, I have all of this and now I have to go through a thumb drive. So it doesn't really make a difference how old you are. A lot of the residents go to the porches, ask a question, and they want it fixed
Yeah,
yesterday.
and I do think they go to the porches because they get immediate response from some other
Right.
resident who knows the answer.
Right,
And that is a more efficient way sometimes than trying to dig through
a thumb drive.
even our website.
Right.
And I just think they naturally go that. I mean, heck, I go, I've done that myself, not for
Mhm.
celebration, but hey, where's a good something? And someone will immediately answer and tell you what's going on. So, and we've come to, that's the new age of
Right.
Facebook and online. Okay. I am going to ask, because we've had a visitor enter the room who's been asked to come to join us, and that is Tom Slayton, who is our legal counsel. We do have an agenda item, so I'm going to ask to pause the communication discussion and skip to item 2 on the agenda so we can approve the supplemental declaration for our new Island Village, which is phase 1A and phase 1B. All of the board members have been provided with a copy of the supplemental. And at our last meeting, we looked at the supplemental, we went into executive session, and we tabled this until today's meeting so we could further clarify and make sure that we had everything we needed before we take over as the homeowners association for the new Island Village phases. So Tom is here. He's going to report back with the changes that we have asked for and they have that they have complied with, and then we'll take a vote to get that approved. So Island Village can move forward and we'll have a whole nother village with like lots of new residents that we need to communicate with.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So for
Mr. Slayton.
anybody that's on the TV, my name is Tom Slayton, legal counsel for PROA. As you discussed, we had an executive session in response to a submission for a supplemental declaration for Island Village. As you may recall, for the board's benefit, there's actually 2 that are being proposed. We're here on 1. This one affects the service areas for the townhomes in Island Village. So about 1/3 of the units within Island Village are anticipated to be built as townhomes. There's going to be a service area to maintain them, including landscaping, exterior paint, et cetera. And we received a proposed supplement from Madame A Homes, which you all reviewed in executive session. You asked me to communicate some requested changes to Madame A. I did that. I had a phone call and exchanged some emails with Madame A. They've been very proactive in making some of the changes, and they've submitted what is presented to you today. Just as kind of as a summary of what you asked for, and to point you in the direction of the supplement, we had asked for them to make a change to section 3.1, the large paragraph under subsection K. So section 3.1 under subsection K, which is the last item listed for maintenance items. The change that we asked them to make related to the amount of time we had to inspect townhomes once we were notified that they were going to be turned over to us. So in this supplement, like most supplements, including, for example, Spring Lake, there is a notice procedure where the builder tells us we've completed this townhome. You now have an opportunity to inspect it to determine if there's any defects in the items that we built. And the Spring Lake supplement had a 10 business day notice. What Mattamy did was they copied that 10 business day notice and submitted it to us at the last meeting. We had a discussion. We had some concerns about the 10 business days. And so we came back and we said, please make it 45 days. In other words, they send us a notice of the townhomes being turned over. We would have 45 days to do the inspection and then submit a notice back to them if we approved or disapproved of it. And then there's a procedure. If there's a disapproval where they have to fix the items to our satisfaction, they send us another notice. And then if we find it satisfactory, we accept it. But if we have additional concerns, then, it would be 45 more days to inspect and submit a notice. Mattamy's response was, we don't think that we can work in the 45-day window. So what they proposed is to keep the 10 business days, which is basically 2 weeks, but to agree at the very end of that paragraph that they would not submit more than one townhome building to us per week. So we would not get 4 or 5 townhome buildings. We would just get one a week at the most. And so that's their requested proposal or change to it. The second paragraph that we discussed with,
I think we had a couple questions about.
yeah,
that.
go ahead.
So my question is to Neil and Susanna, is 10 business days for a building, and a building would be 4 to 6 units, and there are 16 buildings in Island Village planned for townhomes. But is that 10-day period sufficient for you to do something a little more than pro forma? That is to just walk by and say it looks pretty. I mean, can you do what needs to be done in 10 days to certify that it's proper to turn over and take responsibility for?
I think, and then
Yeah, Tom actually addressed that. I had an email and I actually questioned that with Tom's clarity. So my concern with the 10-day was that's a really short time if we found issues, not only for CROA, but for Mattamy to be in a position to be successful with it. But as Tom clarified, if we found something in that 10 days, the remedy period is not in the 10 days. That business day now starts over again. That is fair.
Okay.
And yes, if it's one building per week, we'll grab, all of our department heads, we can hit it in a half a day. My concern was the remedy period, but Tom clarified
Yeah,
that,
so
and that's very
so if
reasonable.
we raise something, it basically stops the clock, right? And then then we have to re-inspect, and we have another 10 days to re-inspect. If we found something else, then it stops the clock again until it meets the standard.
Exactly right.
Well,
So
resets the clock.
Resets.
exactly, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
resets. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's a better term. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And you're comfortable, given the number of buildings that you've got, in phase 1 and phase 1B, as I said, there's 16 different buildings. So you're going to do this 16 times.
As long as it's one building per week, that's fair.
Okay.
Okay. good.
Yeah, if it was
So-
4 buildings in a week, no.
Got it.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Two clarifications, and Jackson alluded to it. We're assuming that a townhome unit is the building, which includes 4 to 6 townhomes. So it's not this townhome and that one this week. So it's the whole structure.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then the other piece is there a way that management can know, hey, this building is ready for inspection? In other words, this building's going to be ready May 1st.
So they have also agreed that they will provide us with tentative schedule and
Thank
give
you.
us as much advance notice as they can
That helps
provide.
for scheduling of whomever specialists might be needed.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with that reset, the reason I say that's more than fair, because now if we have a situation, let's just say like a reset, now we're actually not limited to just 45 days as well. That's why that's fair. I think a mechanism that triggers a pause or a reset is beneficial to both parties. But yes, one building, 4 to 6 units in a week, that's very
And
fair.
look, I think
Thank you.
Mattamy's been very
Yeah,
good at
very fair.
negotiating with us and
That's
yeah,
good to hear.
Yeah, they've been very good. And I'm sorry, go ahead,
Thank
Tom.
Okay, so the second item that we addressed is section 3.10. You would ask for the inclusion of a reference or mention of the Island Village Service Area Committee. And so that was specifically added to section 3.10.
I've got a question about that.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, that's
I
okay.
do too.
So we met with 2 representatives of Mattamy yesterday for the RFP purposes, And I asked the question about service area. And I said, are you going to do a separate service area for each townhome or group of townhomes? Are you doing one big service area for all of Island Village or phase one of Island Village? And I think the answer was a little fuzzy, to be honest. I think that they're not entirely sure, but it makes a big difference with service area committees. Because as you well know, let's say we take a block of 3 townhouse buildings and they're all contiguous to each other, and we call that the Something Muse Townhome Service Area. We're starting then to elect service area committee members based on 20% of 18 units, right? Versus 20% of 280 units in phase one between single family and townhomes. Do you have any clarity, Tom, as to how they're going to set up the service area? It's not clear to me from reading the documents what they plan to do.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. go ahead.
I think
Tom,
the answer,
This is Leslie Candace. I'm the Chief Legal Counsel for Mattamy Homes. Can I handle that response, Tom?
Sure.
but I think the
Sure.
answer is in 2.1.
Yeah, hold
The
on,
answer's in
hold on
two-
just a second, Leslie. Let me have David speak, and then if
Yeah,
we're
I-
still
I
not
have-
clear,
I-
we'll have you.
Yeah, in that section you were just alluding to, Tom, later, I had raised a word question on that. But 2.1, I think, says for all of the townhome units in Island Village, that is one service area.
That's how I read it.
And then there was just that one wording on wherever we just were.
3.10.
Yeah. Where, I'm not gonna find.
It's-
Oh, yeah, 3.10. So it says owners of units within each service area. Should that not be this service area may elect
It's
a
all gonna
service?
be one, yeah.
Because it's all one service,
I think
because
that's
that
what
word
confused me.
each
Yeah.
triggered, I think, where
Correct.
Jackson was going.
Yes.
So I think it's this Island Village service area, because that includes all the townhomes.
That was my impression.
That was
it
my
one
impression.
service
And I
area.
think that refers back to 2.1 language.
Yeah, so,
But
so
I just want
my,
that crystal clear, going to Jackson's point.
yeah, so my reading of it is, and I think we should let Leslie just add to it, is there's going to be one Island Village service area. That's how I read it. And so if you caught the word each, then yes, I understand the ambiguity with that term.
Okay. Leslie, thank you for joining us. And what was your comment?
Sure, yeah, so I drafted this declaration as well as the recreational declaration, which is not a factor of consideration today. So Tom is correct in that we are intending to have a townhome service area for this, project for Celebration Island Village. So it would all be in one service area.
Okay, so we need to make an edit to make that the change of word is not each, but this service area.
Yes, and I'm happy to, I'm gonna keep track of these.
Okay, we'll make that as part of the motion.
Thank
Right,
you.
Yep.
and just to clarify, I just want to be explicit here, that this service area includes the 63 lots or the 238 residences planned for phase one of Island Village. Is that correct, Leslie?
Well, that's a topic of conversation that I think we need to have. One of the other concerns that was raised was the commencement of assessments issue. And so Tom and I, tried to work, strategically on those. And so it depends on how the board wants to handle those. So that's your other consideration, I think, regarding item 5, section 5 of the agreement. So if you want to skip to that, and we can have that conversation, then I can better answer your question. But at this point, we're not certain how the board intends to handle. We want to, Mattamy, of course, has been willing to work with you, but the concern is if we subject all of our lots in the phase 1A and 1B plots that have been recorded already, they're already recorded, to CROA today, and we have to pay assessments for the next 2 years until we convey to homeowners, even though Mattamy is paying for the maintenance and insurance of its lots, and there are no homeowners that are incurring, or utilizing your common area spaces otherwise within Celebration, because we haven't built those houses or sold them. That's a huge strain on our organization from a financial standpoint. So
Tom, your comment, Tom, your comments on section 5?
Okay, so section 5.1. So what Mattamy is basically asking us to do is allow them to turn over smaller groups of homes or townhomes in order to kind of control or more precisely limit the amount of assessments that they have to pay. But it also means that we're not taking on the responsibility for those properties until they're turned over. And so that was a change to section 5.1 because they understand that once it is submitted to once the supplement is reported and a property is submitted to the charter, that they're responsible for almost all the assessments except for one, which is the first home buyer buying from Mattamy, but everything else is their responsibility. And so they were asking in this change to section 5.1 that they be able, and to telegraph to you that they would like to be able to turn over small areas at a time, so that they're not paying a large amount of assessments on lots that are maybe platted, but there's
we are
nothing on
incurring
it.
no costs for those lots.
Right.
Until they're turned over.
Until they're turned over.
Correct.
We have no commitment to maintain them. They're maintaining them, and there's no resident there using our facilities. Jeff?
But I want to be explicit about the linkage between these two sections, and Leslie is correct. The two have to be looked at together, because if we defer the assessments, then what that means is that there's no representation at a service area level for anyone in Island Village until that entire section has been completed.
But they're not saying the entire section. They're saying they're going to turn it over in sections.
Well, no. But
Am I misunderstanding that?
if it's one service area, you
Mhm.
can't set up the service area and set up the representation of the service area until you've completed
The service area.
the whole service area.
Jackson, are you saying you
That
can't be
means
half
section
pregnant?
one. Yeah,
Are you saying you can't be half pregnant?
yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, but
I
in a
disagree.
legal sense, you can always be half pregnant. So
I
I'm
disagree.
trying to figure that
I
out.
think that you can subsequently add homes at a later date, 10 or 12 townhomes, for example, at a time to the service areas. It's not like the service area is a clearly defined date. You could add lots at a subsequent date to a service area, so that if we have a 1C plat or a 1D plat and there are townhomes in that we want to add to the service area, we could add those when those plats come online at a later date.
But
So-
then how do we calculate Tom, how do we calculate the membership and the voting rights, right? Because if you take that idea and you add 6 more residents, and then a month later you add 6 more residents, and you keep doing that, don't your numbers change for what's required in terms of ownership as a percentage of the total before we can turn over service area voting rights to a committee?
Right, and before I answer your question, David, did you want to?
Yeah, I think there's the issue of the service area, and then the issue of the service area committee. With the exception of Artisan Park, the service area committees are relatively new. And most of our service areas still don't have a committee. I mean, we have about 5 or 6. So it's a new thing. Frankly, I wouldn't worry about that, right? Frankly, I just wouldn't worry about it right now. Let's get the project going. Let's get service areas set up. And then the committees will unfold. And then there's probably a legal interpretation when you have homeowners. When you have 6 families living there, then 12, and then 30, and then the dynamics will change probably.
But
So
this-
to your-
So that's a
this
committee.
document
That's a
does not-
committee. To me, that's less important.
But this document does not preclude us from setting up the service area at any specific time. We can set it up when there are residents populating the service area. But do we have to wait till it's completely full to set up the service area? And
So-
that's,
So I don't think so, but I think Leslie wanted to jump in and
Yeah.
answer that too.
Yeah, so it seems to me there are 2 ways to go about it. If you want us to do the supplement that includes all of the lots that are currently platted in phase 1A and 1B, we're willing to do so. But commencement of the assessments and the costs occurred therewith, from Mattamy's standpoint, it's not financially feasible to do so until you have actual residents occupying those homes, because Mattamy insures all of its Mattamy owned property, and it will own all of these lots until we sell to a third party home buyer. So there's no need for CROA to maintain insurance. There's no need for CROA to maintain any perform any maintenance on these lots, because they're going to be under construction. And frankly, that's an unsafe situation. And we wouldn't want CROA on our job sites during construction, obviously. And then again, as I said, the homeowners there will be no one utilizing the celebration amenities because there wouldn't be any residents. So if you want to go ahead and set up the service areas and record the supplements against all of the platted lots, we can do so. We just need to modify how the assessments are incurred. But more importantly, Mattamy, as the owner of the lots within the townhome in the service area, would be the member of that service area until it's conveyed to a homeowner. So we're willing to do that. We just need to understand and get a consensus with CROA on the assessments component, because again, it's not financially feasible. So the way,
okay,
sorry.
yeah, that's okay. So how did we do, obviously Spring Lake turned over a portion at a time, and when they turned them over, that's when the assessment started. Is that how we did that with Spring Lake? I
Yeah.
was not part of the board at that time.
Yeah, so in reviewing and correct me if I'm wrong, Susanna, because I think you had taken a look at the research, as property was turned over from David Weekly Homes to homeowners, you could see that either when it was submitted, whether it was a supplement or the plat, David Weekly and the homeowners were paying assessments, and then obviously as the homeowners bought the homes, they were the predominant party to paying assessments. With respect to the service area, I don't know when the Spring Lake service area got started. So do you remember, Susanna?
I think we saw some paperwork that the service area was solidified after the activity. The clubhouse was turned over. So there was, some old records showed that the assessments would change as the phases came in. So you had phase 1 and the assessment was this, and then you had a phase 2, and of course they would change because you had more homeowners participating in that. But of course, it all banks on having a reserve study, so even know what the costs are.
I want to.
And I would just
I
add,
want to
Hold on
Going
just a second,
back-
Jackson.
I wanna go
Jackson
to-
first and then Leslie.
okay,
I want to
sorry.
go to David's point about sort of kicking the can down the road, and I understand why that's makes sense. On the other hand, as I understand the construction in phase 1, we're looking at perhaps a 2-year build out, which means that during those first 2 years, theoretically, you would have limited or no resident decision-making process at the service area level. And given what we saw in Spring Lake, where there were immediate concerns and problems with landscaping and other things, I'm concerned about going for that length of time before we actually kick into gear an actual service area. So I recognize that what Madamy's concern is the dollars. Perfectly understandable. But I think we balance the dollars with the need for representation. And I would love to hear from Kevin about this, because I think that the service area committees are critical to us understanding and the development of a new portion of Celebration. And if we're here a year from now and we say to the 25 or 50 residents of Island Village, sorry, you don't get any real formal say in this. You got to wait till we finished out phase 1. I think we're asking for a problem. That's really my
That's
comment
fair.
to your.
That's
So
fair.
let me
Okay,
just
so
respond
Leslie
to
and
that.
then Leslie and then Debbie, and then if we can hear from Kevin. 'cause you
So
have-
I was just going to concur, first of all, with Susanna's interpretation of Spring Lake, that this section 3.1 regarding the service area committee was not covered off in that amendment, which is why it's being asked to be added here, because this original draft of this supplement was a direct copy of the Spring Lake to start with. And this is one of the provisions that we specifically added and are happy to add, of course, at the board's request. And then I would just respond to your concern about the service area committee and having no representation. I think that's wholly inaccurate. Madamy is the owner of those lots. If the supplement is recorded, would then be the controlling party of those lots. And they, until we convey to homeowners, would make up that committee, such that if CROA had a concern, it would have to come to Madamy as the, controlling owner of the 10 townhome lots that are in this service area committee to resolve whatever the issue might be. So I think that would assuage your concerns on that point, sir.
Okay, hold on. Debbie, hold on. I'm trying to go in order
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we got lots of hands up. Debbie Jackson, you had a comment?
Looks more like Mike.
Well, it's not Debbie Jackson, but it's.
Oh,
somebody-
sorry, Debbie. It said your name online says Debbie. I apologize,
know,
Mike.
I know. I walked in and stole her computer.
I see.
Mike Jackson. I'm reluctant to chime in here, but I think I need to. I believe, and I'm going to qualify everything I say, I believe that our past practice has been to bill the assessments when lots are platted on all the villages. And I know that from being on the finance, at least I think I do, from being on the finance committee, we have planned in our 3-year look that as those lots are platted and those first lots are being platted now, that income was going to be coming in. So I believe we are acting on that same premise that we've used in the past. So I'm a little concerned you're going to make an exception here possibly. I wish Brian was on the phone because he would know for sure. But I'm just cautioning you that I think it will be different than what we've done in past practice.
Can I
Mike,
respond to that point?
Hold on, let me ask Mike a question. did you budget for the home, the single family home and the townhomes together?
Whatever was planned, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 60 some odd homes were planned for the first year, or 60 plats. And that would have been what was done then for the assessments.
It included both.
It included both.
Yes.
Thank you for clarification. Okay,
So can I
Um,
respond to Mr. Jackson?
okay, briefly, yes.
Yes, so Mr. Jackson, the plats for phase 1A, which to your point is like 60 some odd lots in the first phase 1A, and then there's a subsequent phase 1B, they have already been recorded. Phase 1A was recorded in December of 2020. So for 4 months, we've been working to try and finalize the supplement with CROA. So upon platting doesn't really work here because it's already been done. So we're trying to record the supplement to accommodate the situation that's currently at hand. So I'm not trying to create an exception, but we can't fix what's already been done, sir.
Okay, so let me ask a question to that. Are you telling me that we missed the opportunity to build the assessment when they were originally platted?
No.
No,
I'm misunderstanding then.
no, the plat, but
I
the
can follow.
plat, I'm just trying to say that you typically a supplement is recorded with the plat. I agree with you on that, sir. But unfortunately, the plat went ahead and was processed by Osceola County and has already been recorded. So 4 months later, we're still now trying to finalize the supplement to add it to your declaration. So for the last several months, Mattamy has been, maintaining the property, carrying insurance, doing all of that. We're just trying to get to a point where CROA can accept those lots. That doesn't affect the assessment and the budget in any way, shape, or form from our standpoint.
You're not trying to defer the assessment.
We're trying to determine when the assessment will commence because the plat has already been recorded and the supplement has not.
Okay, and my point is that the assessment is typically recorded, or is typically charged when the plat is recorded.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
I can probably clarify this. So
yes.
the assessment is charged when two things happen, the later of which triggers it. The recording of the supplement and the recording of the plat. So what Leslie's saying is they've done what you normally do second, which is record the plat first, but the lots are not obligated to pay assessments until they're submitted to the charter. So until the supplement's recorded, those lots are not submitted to the charter. And what Mattamy is asking is that with the number of lots that we have platted right now, that they be able to submit some of those lots that are platted now. And then as they continue to build out, they submit more platted lots to the supplement in pieces to
Just
basically.
townhomes, not.
That would be a
No, it's going to be,
deferral.
it's both.
Everything.
Both.
It's
Yeah.
both, yeah.
Excuse me, that would be a deferral of the assessment from the way I understand it.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, that's
Piecemeal.
the way I understand it as well.
Yeah, so that's not the way we planned it. That's not the way it's
That's not
budgeted.
the way it was budgeted.
That's not the way it's been put in past.
I
past-
agree. I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike.
so I agree with Mike. I'm opposed to deferring the assessment over a longer period of time. I understand that Mattamy would like to not pay it right now, but for 25 years, every builder, every developer in every phase of celebration has had to do that. And I don't know why we should have different rules today. So that's number one. But number two, to Elizabeth's point, and I say this with great respect, I have been here when the developer controlled all of the boards, when we had Class A and Class B voting members. And it is disingenuous to say there'll be representation because Mattamy, as the owner of most of the lots, will still be here and be represented. There is a difference between the developer's representation and the owner's
Yes.
representation.
Absolutely.
And so to me, that is not the solution. The solution is giving some voice to the actual residents as they turn over these sections. So I'd like to find some compromise that allows some delay, perhaps, for payment of the assessment in exchange for the ability for owners, residents, rather than owners, because Mattamy is the owner until they sell it, but some opportunity for the residents to have a voice initially.
If I may.
So I want to play this out.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry, point of
I did
order,
ask for
Diana.
Kevin's comments
Yeah,
first.
sorry, Kevin was
Kevin's
next.
been hanging for on, and then
Okay,
David,
okay.
then you.
So I appreciate, Jackson, you bringing up the service area, because that's where the conversation started, where my name got thrown out there. And I'm sitting here extremely frustrated with this entire situation. And that is no disrespect to anybody here, because not anybody here is the one profiting off of this setup. It's the people high and far away. The service area, when it came to the committees, that was one of my big pushes. And the reason why is we sit here as a board for our residents, current and future, our owners, current and future. We do not, okay? And I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I personally, as a board member, do not sit here to defend the developer, the Celebration Company, Kanoa, Disney, Mattamy, David Weekley, whoever you want to go ahead and say. I go ahead and I sit back on how things have happened based on the history in our community, based on how TCC has done things with David Weekley in Spring Lake, and what has happened as a result, which was both dollars and frustrations that happened in the beginning of turning over Spring Lake to CROA, and continues to be an issue. I do not believe it was that board's that was seated at that time. I do not believe it reflects on them, or it should reflect on them. However, it does. And I brought this up in, I believe, a private meeting, in an executive meeting, where Disney, the Celebration Company, if they want to shove this down our throats, they can. And I'm going to sit here because I'm going to let everybody know right off the bat, I'm a nay for this. I'm a nay for many reasons. One specifically, this was supposed to be dedicated 100% to communication today. That was pushed back because of this same subject last week. And it's continuing to affect our current and future residents because of Mattamy's dollar. And that's what it's coming down to. Mattamy was the highest bidder. They weren't selected because they were a great company, this, that, or the other. I'm not going to say one thing or the other on that, but they were the highest bidder for that land. And now we need to go ahead and step back.
Well, and I will take responsibility for adding it to the current communications meeting because I felt that we owed it to them to address it since we pushed it back on the last meeting. So I take responsibility for that. Okay.
Pressure on you, and you have a lot of stuff on your shoulders. I don't believe it's on you.
That's fine, but I was the one who did that, so I take responsibility for that.
May I make
So a technical question.
David had a comment.
A technical question. All of this supplement is about the service area. 100% of the service area is townhomes. Am I correct, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're not talking about homes. So when we talk about the service area committee, right now, there is not a service area. Assuming this gets approved. Right now, there is not a service area. We get one townhome unit of 6 homes online. That is a service area, correct?
Correct. The service
Right.
area assessment and
So the-
service area maintenance.
So all that stuff starts. And so if 3 of those units get sold, then Mattamy owns 3, private homeowners own 3. So it's a balanced voting rights. Now we sell the next unit. Now there's 12. So then you have 7 homeowners. The homeowners have the majority. And then you get 18 and so forth.
Yeah, they don't though, because Mattamy is the owner in occupancy.
Until it gets sold.
Right.
If I buy the unit, then I'm the owner and occupant. That's my point.
Right, but they would have ownership of all the units.
Can I make a proposal?
But the service area
But
is
if
only
they're-
those that have been turned
But he's
over to
saying-
us.
But he's saying the ones that were sold.
Once they start
have voting rights
selling,
as a committee.
then the
But remember,
homeowners,
it's one service area for all of Island Village.
right, but the service area is going to change its composition from 6 to 12 to 18.
I hope you're right.
No,
That's
that-
going to take a while.
it's going to
Okay.
take a while, but the point is, very quickly, new buyers, residents in our community will be the majority, very quickly.
Mm-mm.
Can I make
That's my
a
point.
Well, Neil had a comment, I believe, and then we'll go to you, Leslie.
My comment was just to circle back because Kevin was pending.
Oh,
That was it. It was just
That's
point of order. That was all.
Thank you. I appreciate you helping me on that. Lots of comments. Leslie, to you.
Yeah, so I'd just like to make a proposal because I hear your concerns and I'm sorry, Kevin, I wasn't aware that this was supposed to just be a communications workshop. We were scheduled for a meeting last week that was deferred until this week. So I apologize. It wasn't Mattamy's intention to overtake this meeting. So my apologies for that, but it is important for us to be able to move forward with this supplement. As I mentioned, I've been working with Tom and Susanna and Neil on this since December, and we intend to try and open for business this weekend. And so we can't do so until the board approves our supplement. So we have an idea as to what our future homeowners will have to pay in regards to assessments. So that's the necessity for this. And that's kind of the backstory on why on April 16th, we need to get resolution of this matter. So I do apologize, but we have been working very hard with folks behind the scenes to get this done. And we appreciate all of your understanding and cooperation in that regard. But my proposal is that if your concern is that Mattamy as the developer will be in control of the service area because we're the developer, that's not our intention. That's not our goal. Our goal is obviously to sell homes to these homeowners and have them be the members of CROA, not for Mattamy to be the member of CROA. Mattamy homeowner or Mattamy builders and workers are not going to be using your common areas. Our homeowners will be. So we very much see this as a benefit for our homeowners. So in that regard, my proposal is, what if we just record the supplement, 10 homes at a time, like we're doing with the townhome inspections, so that when we get to a closing with a home buyer, the supplement is recorded, and then those homeowners then immediately become the members of CROA, not Mattamy. So I think that alleviates your concern about Mattamy somehow having control over the service area. Keep in mind, the service area is only over the townhome units and not the single family units. The
No, the service area is the entire unit. That's where we started this discussion. It is the entirety of Island Village.
No.
I think we actually,
Townhomes. Townhomes only.
Yeah, so the
2.1 specifies the specific lots, which are only the townhome lots that will be subject to the
Yeah,
service
they're just
area.
townhomes.
The rest of the
Why-
residents.
Right,
It's
so.
not the
service-
single family
yeah,
houses.
The rest of the service, the
No.
single family homes are part of CROA. And
Without
they
a
have-
service
without
area.
a service
Correct.
area.
That's right.
They don't have any,
So
there's no,
Article
There's no
2,
need.
It's like my home. is
Article
not a
2
service area.
There's no
establishes
need for a
service
service area.
area.
Hold on, Leslie. There's no need for a service area like in Spring Lake for private homes because we are not responsible
I got it.
for the
Okay,
landscape.
my
and payment.
apologies. My
No
apologies for that.
problem. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
I'd like to make a motion at this point.
I just want to.
Have at it. Let's
I
do
moved
today.
I moved to table the supplement. I'd like Brian to be here. I think the full board needs to weigh in on this. Brian
He
has some.
he was attempting to be. here.
I know, and he wasn't able to do it. I'd like to table the motion. I understand the need for expediency on the part of Mattamy. I apologize for that, but I am not ready. If I'm forced to vote today, I'm going to vote no. I ultimately want to vote for this, but I need to have more information. I need to have more discussion, and I think the board needs to have more discussion. So my motion is to table the approval of the supplement.
I'll second it.
Okay, for discussion.
Diana, sorry, you had Kevin try to.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm
There's no
sorry.
discussion on a motion to table.
Hold on.
Let's just jump in a second.
You were jumping into second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Kevin? I'm calling the vote.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Cindy,
Abstain.
David,
No.
Celia?
Yes.
So we have 3 yeses and we need 4 to do it. And I'm the deciding vote. I'm gonna say yes, we're gonna, because I want to know about the finances. So we're gonna table it until we can get everyone together for a meeting.
So can we schedule some time to speak with the board members to, go through all of these concerns? Because
Yeah, well,
we certainly
after the
want to
3
call another meeting. I mean, this will now be, now that this has been tabled, we are now going to have to schedule a 3rd meeting for approval of the supplement. And clearly we want to address your concerns. And we thought that we had in this revised supplement. So we'd really like to have an opportunity to talk with the board members in an open forum or meet with them one-on-one or all together in person or virtually. So we can get everything out on
It
the.
would,
No one.
yeah, it would have to be a meeting of all the board together. We will get with you after this meeting today. I'm meeting with Neil and Susanna and we'll figure it out. Okay?
Thank
All
you
right.
for your time. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. We're just, honestly, Leslie, we just want to do what's best for the residents. We have a lot of new residents coming in and the best for our association. And we just want to make sure we get this right going forward. So,
Understood, and we want the same for our future homeowners.
and I think we will come to a meeting of the minds. We just need to we need to get a few additional answers.
A question for Tom. Were there other items
That was it.
that we needed, that you had changed that we needed to highlight?
So besides 3.10, we had also So we'd address briefly 5.1. Section 9.1, at our request, Madam May had added that. It's a prohibition against short-term rentals.
Yeah, we talked about that.
That would not be, that there's no
You
discussion.
put the charter language in.
We just copied and pasted the charter language. Madam May was fine with that.
It was
So
already covered, but we made it more explicit.
more-
you were concerned that buyers would come in and think that they could do short-term rentals,
Right.
especially because of the trend. But Madam May immediately agreed
Yeah,
that they would include exactly what the charter said. So it's a reminder to homeowners of what they can't already do.
But it doesn't say no short-term rentals.
Yes,
it
It's
does.
just-
It does.
Does
It
it?
does,
Where
yeah.
on here?
9.1.
Yeah, we
9.1.
explicitly copied the charter language and it is now as part of the supplement.
Yeah, it says you have to rent for a year.
Right, but it doesn't say no short-term
It
rentals,
says the
does it?
shortest
It
for an
says-
apartment is 3 months.
Right, but some people don't understand that. When you say no short-term rentals, that's more specific.
We've given them the time period.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we had to define, so in
Okay.
any
The minimum
declaration, you
rental is
have to
3 months.
define
Right.
it. So when we say all leases shall be for an initial term
Right.
of no
I
less
see
than
all
1
that.
year. Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. All right, very good. So we move on. Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you very
We'll give you
much.
a call later today.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
I guess to Mike Jackson's point, we had already discussed the finances, and I thought that that was clear.
I did. I'll be honest.
thought the
was-
finances
I was
would
caught a little off guard by the layering in, and that's where we need clarification. And that was not the way I had initially understood it. So we will get clarification and then we move on. But I appreciate their time. All right, so back to what we were talking. What is my
Well,
time? What's my
well-
time check?
It's
Yeah.
10:40. Can we jump to item 3?
Item 3. If
Yeah.
you would-
We're 5 minutes over. That's where we
we are
are.
5 minutes.
That's where we
over.
are.
Item 3.
Item 3 is
Future workshop topics.
new agenda. I mean, was
Oh,
future workshop. I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jackson, you had a comment?
Well, I know in response to your email, I think that the amount of items we have for April 28th is excessive. I think it's probably, it has the potential to be a 3, 4 or longer hour meeting. And I'm not sure that we know yet procedurally how we want to handle what is really a first ever kind of problem, which we have. It's a good problem. We have more applicants for committees than we have spots. And because this is a question of first impression, I think we should get it right because it's what future boards, I assume, will do based on what we do. So I'd like to take those items off the agenda on April 28th. I think it's perfectly appropriate to approve the committee resolutions.
Yeah.
But the memberships of the committees, I would like to take off of that agenda so that we can have some further conversation about how we're going to go through and select committee members. And I don't know how we're going to do it.
I'm thrilled we have this many applicants. I
Right,
think it's
right.
fabulous and that's what we all.
Yeah, what's the process for,
Yeah, but we need a process, a fair, concise
Right.
review.
So I'm just asking today that we remove those items from the board packet. It
the
doesn't-
membership, the new members item,
Yes,
Right,
yes.
not the resolution?
It doesn't require a lot of additional work. It's cutting and pasting. That same work will go into a new board packet. And I'm going to suggest that we hold another board meeting in May, unfortunately, to deal with that specific issue, but I think we need to do that. And I would also like to say, going forward next year, when there are only 2 seats that will be up for election, that we hold a March board meeting. There's part of the goal of the charter was to have continuity.
Continuity.
There's enough continuity that we probably should do a March board meeting rather than have this monster packet in April.
Yeah, because there are, I think.
39,
30 yeah,
39.
39. I was gonna say 38, 39 items on
So-
the agenda. And it is.
So
just
that's
not
my
doable with
motion.
fairness, yeah.
With respect to the agenda on
Agreed.
April 28th, that we remove
Agreed.
those committee membership items.
I
So
agree. We-
that's my
I'm-
motion.
David, was that a
second.
second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? I'm gonna hope.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I do have a resident's hand though. I voted aye as well, Kevin. I do have Joseph Linehan. Linehan? Sorry if I pronounced it wrong.
Yeah, thank you. Joseph Linehan, 1258 Celebration Avenue. I'm a bit confused about the selection process for the committees because that was discussed in a workshop last summer under Vanessa in regards to the Administrative Resolution 11. That is an established part of our charter. There are specific terms in terms of how committee members are chosen, and it's basically a first come, first serve from the call. And it's pretty straightforward and spelled out. So it seems pretty easy to be able to just approve those members that were turned in. I'm not sure where the confusion is in terms of the selection process.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. Do you have it up, Suzanne? It was part of the APC.
Yeah, it's part of that packet, but
Yeah,
I don't
is.
have
I'm
it.
sorry, it's buried in my email.
I think that's something we're gonna have to look into. If that's true, that's interesting. I'm not sure that that's the understanding of
Yeah.
anybody on the board right now.
Okay,
I
let me,
recall this. Give me one moment. I'm trying to see with Jackson's proposal, would we accept any future applications? Are we keeping that window open, or are we just saying we're keeping these applications we currently have? We're just determining our process moving forward.
hold on.
It's a good question.
Because I would not be in favor of pushing this back and accepting additional applications. I'm just.
So what you're saying is
Okay, so
close the door,
I'm looking at the
but then make a decision later.
Administrative Resolution 11, Committee Task Force, Section E, Appointment, Resignation, and Removal of Members.
Section D is where the process for committee task force appointment is. Call for volunteers, 1. And it goes over the appointment
Yeah.
and application
So
process.
applications will be accepted at any time. I'm at Section D2A. Applications will be accepted at any time. Upon receipt, the appropriate staff liaison will date stamp, verify their eligibility, contact the applicant to advise him of status of eligibility. When applicant is eligible, there will be single openings. Encourage applicant to attend the next meeting of interest to see if they're interested in the committee. When applicant is eligible and there are no vacancies, advise the applicant that his application will be kept on file for a year. As vacancy arrive, eligible applicants will be considered based on the order of which they were received. Explain why the applicant is not eligible. Then place applicant on waiting list on agenda for consideration at the next board meeting.
I think that's like filling.
Yeah, I
once
think-
it's- once it's
That's filling a
constituted,
vacancy, but we're,
It's a vacancy thing.
we have historically asked all committee members to reapply every year. That
That's
started
That's
Yeah.
correct.
3 years
That's
ago. didn't
correct.
it?
That's correct.
So I'm not prepared to make a decision today about that rule. I'd like to look at it more
Yeah,
and be able to
let's,
review it and read it. But so my motion still is to withdraw those items from the agenda. So
And we approve that.
and we didn't. do
Right.
that.
We did approve your
yeah,
motion.
so
Out
But
out
I
of
don't think-
curiosity, just for clarification, why would we do that now instead of going ahead and doing it on that day? Because you have many people in the community, both the applicants and just community members, that may be tuning into that meeting already expecting that's the date.
Agenda hasn't been posted publicly, has it?
Right.
That is correct. The agenda has not been posted. Okay.
And we need to talk about how do you handle when you have 10 people for 5 slots or 7 slots? I mean, what are our criteria?
And it isn't first come, first serve.
It
It
does-
says
it does-
considered. The
Never
key
had-
word says considered.
No,
Right.
and I apologize, the board was very specific in this, in the meeting that Vanessa led last year. And the only criteria is that the individual is in good standing with dues and fees with the community. That was the only criteria that was agreed upon by the board that was necessary. Everything else was when the application came in and in the order that the application came in. That was very specific and the outcome of the special workshop topic
But if
that was
were true, we
on
wouldn't have
committee
had to announce
selection.
it that way. We would have had to say,
I
that's how
under-
we're going to fill
Yeah.
fill the
I under-
vacancies.
I
You may be
understand.
right, Joseph,
Yeah.
but we need some time to look at it. I don't want to sit here in an open meeting without the document in front of me and the time to respond
Yeah,
and think about it.
I agree. I guess I would just say, grant us the grace to look at it and make sure that we are all on the same page and following that and to review that, because at this point, we don't feel comfortable moving forward until we have reviewed that.
Then from a respect standpoint, please notify everybody on the committees that they've been automatically extended in their volunteer status for these committees for the next 2 months. And that
I don't
it would
believe,
be
I don't,
appreciated that they continue.
First of all, I agree that we will notify the committees. We already had a brief discussion with that, and we'll talk about that with Susanna and Neil after this meeting. But I do not believe it will be 2 months. I believe it will be maybe an extension of a week to possibly 10 days. We don't let it, I won't let it go that long. I don't think that's fair to the committee members to allow it to extend any further than that, or to extend how long it takes us to do the approvals.
Clarification.
Yes.
So are you saying that anybody who is currently on a committee, whether there's an opening or not, will automatically be accepted for this next year?
And that's what we're saying we have.
No, that it's,
I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, that's not
So
what we're
who
saying.
would we be notified? Who would, to
We're-
his
so
point?
We're notifying the current committee members that the committee, well, I guess it's the 2020 version of the committee
Mhm.
will still be active until the new members are appointed
Gotcha.
at our next board meeting.
Okay,
Is that
all right.
clear?
Yep.
Is it not true historically that this decision comes in May or June? I mean, April is earlier than normal.
no, it is not, David. The
Okay.
last meeting that these were done on was the April CROA Board Directors
Was
meeting,
it? Okay, okay.
which dictated who was going to be handling those committees.
Okay.
The
My memory
reason
was
being
it
is
was
it
later.
usually happens after the new board.
Yeah, I
is
know it's after the new
established.
board, but I didn't think it was the first meeting after the new board.
And
I do
part of
agree
the,
with your
and part of the
March board meeting.
purpose of waiting until after the new board was so that the board could evaluate the applications.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be happy to talk to Vanessa and ask for some legislative history, but I think the reality is we don't know enough at this
Okay.
moment.
Okay. Let's have a good discussion on it.
Yeah. Okay, to make sure that we're following all the stated rules and investigate the history. Okay,
I would highly recommend then that each of the board members review that special topic that was discussed on this specific matter from last summer.
I completely agree with that. And we will make sure that we get either the minutes of the meeting or to get, so everyone is aware of what the standard has been or that what history we are dealing with. Okay. All right, it is now actually 10:48. We have passed our stated deadline.
I move to adjourn.
Wait, I
We
have
still
one,
have
I have one quick communications thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Things get revised a lot. I would appreciate it if we started putting like date of last revision
Give me
on
an
things.
example.
Oh, well, this,
Okay.
but he
Yeah.
didn't, Jackson pulled out the wrong one. He didn't have the second
Okay,
one.
so we.
You know, I mean, anything that we're doing where, David's saying, well, I suggest we add this, and then, Brian comes in, then that way we will know, which is the most current one. Makes
I
me
agree.
crazy.
So as a dovetail, I agree with what you said. I always like to put a date, this is
Mhm.
today's
I mean,
version.
get rid of it, whatever
Yeah.
you've done, but I mean,
So, but the other thing is that I would like to learn how to use Microsoft Teams for that
Yes.
purpose. So I go to wherever the Teams site is
Mhm.
and see the latest version for X or Y or Z.
And that is called Microsoft, that's called OneDrive,
Okay.
which, thank you.
Thank
and
you for,
That is called OneDrive.
that's
and
step
we-
one, knowing
And
where
we
to
have
look. Do we
OneDrive.
have anything on OneDrive right now?
We do, because I put something on there myself.
so are you familiar with this program?
Yeah,
Have you
well,
used it?
yes, because I use it in my
Well, can
professional
you
life.
give a tutorial, a
Well,
face-to-face tutorial?
no, I am not the person to do that. but
I
we
asked
do
that
have
of
someone from the
Technology Committee.
Technology Committee, and that is already in the works.
That is in the works. I've asked
Because
them.
with these new committee members
So that
also
would help.
that we will be
Both.
appointing,
Because I looked for.
well,
myself.
they
I
will be
agree.
using Town Hall email and OneDrive and Teams and all of the Microsoft suite that we have paid to put in place. So we will have training for those people if they don't know how to already use it, or they're not, maybe they're just faster at learning.
I renew my motion to adjourn.
We have a
I'll
second.
second.
Wait.
So this,
Nice try.
this communication workshop was supposed to be dedicated to communication today, and we still didn't hit on.
There are still
6
topics that we will push forward
topics.
to the next workshop.
Okay,
Do we have a second?
do we have?
I second
Jackson,
it.
Second, all in favor,
Aye.
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 motion carries.